Ladies and one gentleman, welcome to Ladies Beyond Flying. It's a big honor today for me. My name is Daniel Stecher, Vice President, Airline Operations, Aviation Software, to have Juliana Rios, CIO and CDO of Latam Airlines Group as our speaker today. And she's going to talk about digital transformation, challenges and opportunities. And I wish us amazing 45, 60 minutes, depending from your activity level. If you have a question, raise your hand or just type your questions also in the chat notes. And Juliana, the stage is yours.
Hello, Daniel. Thank you so much for inviting me. I just realized yesterday that I'm doing the panel in the month of the woman, so it's very special. It's really an honor to be here talking to all great women on this panel. And let's see if we can make this time very interesting. So my name is Juliana. I've been working with Latam Airlines since 2015. Before that, I was actually not from the aviation. I was from the banking industry. What started as an adventure, to be honest, at a certain point in your career that you feel like maybe it's interesting to try something new. It's actually end up in a very in a life change experience in many ways. I live in a different country now. I changed in the industry. I cannot imagine myself outside the airline industry anymore. It really became passion, right? It's so amazing what we do that I'm very happy that I made the shift to come to the airline. And I'm now, since the beginning of last year, I took the role as the CIO and CDO for the Latam Airlines Group. Before that, I was part of the IT team since 2018. But that's when I started in IT. So actually my whole history before that was in more, as we call, right, the business. So that's the way that we usually we refer to, right, the organizations. Inside the organization, you have the business and you have IT. I was from the business and then I joined IT, then became the CIO. We are going to talk a little bit about that, but it has been amazing. It has been really great. And I'm very glad for everything that I did before, but I also have to say that I sometimes think, why have I taken so long to join the IT group, right? So it's so fascinating. But anyway, here I am. So my story in Latam started in 2015, as I said. I came to do the PSS implementation in Latam. So I didn't know anything about airlines, as you can imagine. The only experience that I had was as a passenger, but I came because of a background of having done a lot of large-scale projects in the bank, like acquisitions, integrations, and I did that in Brazil, but also in Italy, and also a little bit in Amsterdam. So I had this kind of international experience with this type of project. So then they felt that could be a good match for a PSS project. When I came here, I didn't know exactly what I was signing up for, to be honest. But then I came here, then I understood that it was really a project that it was the knowledge of the industry is important, but there are so many things that you have to touch to successfully handle a cutover on this type of on the platform that is actually the most important platform in the airline, right? The one that handles everything. And so I came and I had a lot of fun actually learning a lot of new things already at a senior level, but it was so much fun. And also, as I said, I'm Brazilian, so I moved from Brazil to Chile. New language, new life, new industry. Afterwards, I decided to stay, and then I moved. I was invited to go to the IT team, and that's the story that I came to tell you guys. That I went to the IT team to help the CIO that was in the position back then to build a vision on how can we really rethink what the services that we provide to the customer. That was the goal. We started very small, like very small group of people, mostly consultants, just mainly him and I from Latam, working on a project that we called XP, in which what we wanted to do is to really to build the ability to run the digital shop in a full agile scale, but also with the intention behind to make sure that we could really automate everything. And that's not something easy in our industry, right? There are so many legacies. We have so many things that were built in a different time. And so that was the challenge that we started to think. And so what can we do? How can we do to achieve this? So it was not only about technology. It was a lot, I would say 50% about technology, but it was 30% about business rules. We really had to rethink and to simplify some of the processes that were developed in a different time, in a different environment, in a different world. That really would make it very difficult if you have kept the business rules as they were. It would be close to impossible to really automate at the level that we are aiming to. So then we started by redesigning the architecture. That was the first thing that we did, and then signing up teams. We decided to put those teams outside the organization. So it was almost like a company in a company, let's say, model, so that we could make sure that they were totally independent. The organization was designed with pretty much trying to follow as much as possible, like the Agile manifest, let's say. So the teams were independent, they had end-to-end accountability. They were really free to develop and to rethink the experience from the customer. The teams was organized as well, are still organized in accordance with the customer journey. So what I mean by that is that we start engaging, then you have engagement team, and then you select a flight, and then you have the first step sales team, and then you add ancillaries, or we add whatever you want to that experience, and then that's another team, and then it goes to the payments, and then if you want to change something, or if you want to buy another ancillary or something, so then you have the order management team, and then it goes really from, sorry, can you hear me? Yes, I think I'm back. So then it goes all the way to until the moment that the customer actually flies. And so that was the idea, that we would really, instead of having teams set up like in the past, like marketing team, right, pricing team, we decided to do and to build the organization in line with the customer experience. It has been an amazing experience. We started in 2000. We did the business plan across the whole year in 2000, between 18 and 19. At the end of 19, we launched the team and the program. Then it came the pandemic. Also very fun topic to talk here, right? So the pandemic for us was really intense, has been, still, but it was really intense in the beginning. And then what we did is that we decided to accelerate. So we basically stopped the other initiatives, put more people in this program, and then we accelerated the launch of the new platform in the countries. We are not.
A question on that, Juliana. Was the pandemic a support, so an accelerator for something, or was it rather an obstacle to overcome because nobody could travel, people were working from home? Was it a pro or was it a con?
Okay, we have to talk about, so it was the two of them at the same time, right? So first of all, we actually, as most everyone, our planes were grounded, and we had no visibility of when. So we thought at first that it's going to be a 3-month pandemic. Then it was not 3, it was 6. Then 6 became 1 year. Now we are talking 2 years already. So it was on the operation side, it was really, really heavy on the airlines. But then you have the opportunity side, because it's also an opportunity, and that's how we solve for the digital program. And why is that? Because in fact we can accelerate, and you can maybe even start with a different MVP, right? Because the operation is not there. If we have to handle something manually, it's easier. And if something goes wrong, the impact is not going to be that big on the customer. So that's how we saw it as an opportunity. So it was actually living the two, the challenge and the opportunity at the same time. So that's what we did, and we are still working very hard, not yet as where we want to be, but we have set the base. You have set the platform, the structure to make it happen. But of course, then Daniel asked me to talk, what are the challenges of a digital transformation like this? And the number one challenge is the culture. It is very hard for the rest of the organization to really engage with this new way of working of this new organization. So this is, I would say, this is the number one challenge. If someone thinks that the challenge is technical, or it is not even close. It is really about learning how to work in a different way, and then learning as well how to work with the rest of the organization, right, in the best way, let's say. And that is what has been the number one challenge for us. I think number two, it is the legacy systems. We knew they were there and we knew the limitations, but it's actually more, we have been facing more challenge than we thought. Which is also, again, we knew that we would find things, but it's really complicated. So we have been using a lot of creativity to really keep focus on making sure that we keep our concept is that the airline needs to be in the customer pockets. That's how we envision. So that we can do everything, and hopefully, if you want, the first person that you see from the airline or that you talk, it's going to be inside the airplane. That is the vision that we have. In order to do that, we have been having a lot of challenges, but also having to use a lot of creativity, bypass sometimes some process until we have a better solution. We are using a lot of startup solutions as well, pieces, which has been a great and amazing experience. And we didn't really thought that would be the case in the beginning. We didn't think it was going to be necessary, but now we are doing that more and more, and it has been really great, to be honest. And final, but not least, of course, is the customer. Also, it is not easy, the transition, right? Because as we grow the coverage over time, the customer really has to go through the process of sometimes living with the parallel experiences, right? Of having the digital experience going up to a certain point, and then depending on the use case or the complexity around whatever the customer is living in a certain point of the journey, they need to go back to the old processes, and then the agencies has to go from one side. So those are the big trade-offs that we see. But we could not find another way. I in the beginning, when we were still working on PowerPoints and thinking, how can you make this happen? I read a lot. I think I read like 2 how to become digital books a month, at least. And I saw a lot of videos and I spoke to many people. And there was a lot of literature about how to be agile, how to be digital at core. But everything was if you were to apply to a new company, that's how I felt. There is almost hardly anything about how to transition to become digital. And that's a whole different thing. All the concepts, the idea, how to work, it's all great. But when you are and live in a company and that's really come from a history, we are a 93-year-old airline. So can you imagine we have a lot of history of where we work in a different way, very command and control, hierarchical. So it's a project mindset. Then we have to become product mindset. So how to do that? How to transition from one to the other? It's extremely challenging, but it has been fun, to be honest. And I'm really happy that now I'm co-leading. I co-lead the transformation together with the chief commercial officer, and we are learning a lot. It has been an amazing adventure. I'm very happy. Have an amazing team. And I think we are open, and that is the most difficult part, especially for the people that are for also too long in IT. Sometimes it's not that easy to open and to revise or review some of the pre-ideas that we had on how to do software development, and so that has been a very fun. I feel like I have the greatest job in the world, to be honest, right now. extremely
Juliana,
excited.
there are questions here. One question was, you were talking about startups, and Sharina wants to know whether you can give some examples of startups. And then the question is also then from my side, if you're talking about the startups, is your airline learning from these startups, and how is the cooperation with the startups?
Okay, so two great questions. Let me go with the first one. An example, I have so many. Let me think about one. So in the past, digital was about developing the web page, right, and build an app. What we have learned is that everybody's a little bit fed up already. Many people are a little bit fed up already with so many apps that they have to have in their phones. So then we felt we need to be able to allow the customer to engage, especially after buying a product with us, a flight, after booking a flight, in whatever channel they want. So if the channel is WhatsApp, let it be. Let's make it happen, so that we don't have to force the customer to really have to have the app or struggle with, even though we did everything with mobile first development idea, it's still sometimes not the best for the customer, depending on in which step of the journey the customer is. So that was the first project that we engaged with startups, was to find really great companies, and there are a lot of great ones actually in the markets that can that develop the ability for a seamless WhatsApp interaction, and with the possibility of also execute transactions. So that was one. Another one is that it's a very painful process for the customer is when, for whatever reason, the customer wants to do a refund from the ticket. And the challenges, especially for the, let's say, the legacy tickets that we have, because in the new process, the process is more clean and the rules are more simple, but we still have a lot of legacy, and you have other channels that are not on the digital channel. So the challenge is, it really goes back to the calculation. So how, because the fares usually, right, have so many things to be considered. So how to really simplify, or how can we improve the automatic calculation so that the customer doesn't have to call someone to have the problem solved. And so that is also has been a really fun process that we have been working with some companies that really brought some great ideas on how to solve and to simplify this type of thing. So usually we go with a use case. So we have one issue that we want to solve, and then we take that case and then we try to see if we can find solutions in the market, or people that are willing to improve. We are now also working with a lot of great companies that have great solutions on biometrics, for example. So there are, if you want any more detail, please feel free to contact me and then we can talk. I'm not going to mention the name of the companies here, but it's usually like a specific use case that we cannot really get to the level of automation that we want. So then we launch the challenge to try to find someone that has something or that is willing to develop something that we could really plug and play in our platform. And then, Daniel, your question.
Whether you could learn something from the startup.
Oh, yes.
Because you're saying culture, tradition, and so on, and startups usually don't have a tradition.
Yes.
They're just there. Yeah?
A lot. And let me start by the first big lesson for me. It is we are used in our from everything that we learned before the digital transformation. Let's say we are used to everything that every time we engage with someone, we engage with a partner, a company, a provider. Usually you have to, you follow the process in which you have to specify in details what you want. And then they are gonna give you a price, and maybe they're gonna say what we need is different, so I have to customize. So there is nothing that you could do in less than 6 months, 12 months. It is pretty much nothing in the legacy world, right? In the traditional IT, airline IT world. And what we're living right now is totally different. We can really put things in production in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and the open mind, the willingness to collaborate, the language that we talk so to be honest, in general, the conversation with the partners was pretty much about the commercials, right? So we have to buy this product, and then I'm gonna give you a date, and then every time that we would understand each other better, that would become a change request that would have to change the date of the implementation. So that was what we use it to, right? So that was pretty much like that all the time. You don't really see that when we engage with the startups, and that's also something that it has been great for the teams to see, to be able to see and to learn in the engagement that they have. That it's much more open, it's much more flexible. It is about helping me find the solution that I need. It is not really about selling the next product. So that is, I think, the most important lesson that we have been learning from those partners that are from a different generation, let's say.
Two more questions now coming from Lena and also from Azadeh, and they are going in this direction of change, digital transformation, teams. So Lena wants to know, how have you selected the teams for the digital transformation? Have you sourced in-house, or have you taken people from external? And Azadeh also wants to know how you, let's say, manage the typical challenges in such an situation, and how to attack the human factor, the people who are very often reluctant to change, and who are maybe challenged from the digital transformation requirements.
So I mean, really, sometimes I really think that I should, in a certain point of time, some colleagues of mine here in Latam, that we should write a book about it, because it has been so interesting and so great, and it's so difficult. But let's try. So the selection of the teams, it was longer than we expected, because we realized that what was eventually, right, a great performer on the traditional organization would not translate necessarily in a great performer in the digital world. So we were really after an open mindset and willingness to learn, more than someone that think that they have the answer for everything. And that is I think that was the number one thing that we were looking for when we started talking. So many cases we had people in the initial lists for some positions that were like, they are the best, they had the best backgrounds, but then when we would talk to them, we would be very clear that that the willingness was not yet there. And then we really prefer, in some cases, to go outside and to bring people for that. What we try to do is that we try to, as much as possible, to have the first line really coming from Latam. We didn't manage to have the whole first line coming from Latam. I would say it's more or less 60-40. It was 60-40 when we started. 60 from Latam, 40 from outside, because we really had the difficult was the mindset, to be honest, is the willingness to learn, the willingness to not, we also, right in the beginning, we have to replace a few people because of also the managerial style, right? Because if someone would come, but would also always want to enforce in the team their opinion, what they want, it also doesn't work. Then you break the chain, right? On the really having a creative, open, trustful environment in the team. So that is, we were more after, again, just to answer to the how do we select the teams. We were really more focused on the skills, let's say, on the mindset, and much less on the knowledge, specific knowledge, or specific, even both technical and business knowledge than anything. It would be appreciated if they had, but it was not a requirement. The requirement was more on the mindset, let's say. And then how do we, so the human challenge is, as I said, right, this is the biggest challenge here. It's not about the technology. It's really about learning to work in a different way. And you have to go through the process to learn. After reading everything, and sometimes it happens like that I talk to people in Latam and they come to me and they say, I read a book, and now I want to become agile. Can I implement the OKRs? And then we simplify what being digital at core means, right? So, but it's very easy to break, because if you keep engaging, And then you ask, so how are you going to start your process? And then they say, no, I already have the list of things that I want to do prioritized. So then it's immediately broken, right? I said, okay, so then let's do traditional IT, because if you know already what to do, there is no reason to be agile. There is no reason to be, right? So we can really keep engaging the way they engage today. So I would say that for me, most of my time, to be honest, I spend on this inside the organization with the teams. But it's a really big effort to really work through the process of really learning to work in a different way for both the teams that are in this program, but also from the rest of the company that needs to engage with the team, right? One of the questions was also about how do we staff the team in terms of internal and external. So we are pretty, we knew that we didn't have the capabilities inside. And also when you build a digital team, there are so many new things that you have to develop. We didn't have Scrum Masters. We didn't have the DevOps concepts, right? Just so we could build the teams with the idea that you build, you run. So there are so many things that we didn't have. What we did is that we partnered with two consultants. One was strategic and the other one was more like the technical arm. And they brought the technical capabilities, basically. So in the team, but the teams were organized as one. There is one leader, one set of goals, and the leader for this step of the journey that he's responsible for, he looks at the team as his team or her team, but it's a team that combines people from Latam and people from the partner that we have in this program. And then the reason for that, as I said, is that it is not viable, to be honest, I think, to really believe and trust that you can push for the transformation and in parallel have the people building the skills and learn the skills as they go. You have to bring, that's what I learned. I think it's important to bring someone that have done this before, that has experience, that can really coach on a day-to-day basis the teams to work in a different way. Not sure if I answered the questions, but and then you guys tell me, and then I can be more specific.
Yeah, but if you're talking about this change and so on, is it then not better that your title is Chief Change Officer? Because the technology is just the means. But I'm never reading somebody having this title. But you are initiating a lot of change. Wouldn't that not better describe your role?
I don't know, to be honest. I think the titles will change completely and may become irrelevant in the future, to be honest with you. And the whole idea of business and IT, that's one of the first things that we are trying to break here. That is no longer such thing. IT is the business is IT. There is no way you can split them up anymore in the future of Latam. We want to become a digital airline. So the real chief change officer, you could say, is the CEO, right? Because he's the one that is really interested in learning more and really interested in an agenda in which the digital come at core at everything we do, so that we really build things that we can improve the way we deliver for the customer, for the employee, for everything we do. So and then going back to IT and digital, I think we have a special role on this transformation, right? Because most of the concepts, most of the ideas, most of the definitions on how to become digital and how to become agile actually were born in a way, right? Started in IT. So that's why we are, I don't want to offend anyone, but I kind of one step ahead, if you want, in terms of understanding and living this new way of working. So that's why at least in Latam, we are pushing from IT with the help of the company, but also with the struggles of the company of having to go through this. But I don't need a title, Daniel. I will push the change in whatever I am, to be honest, because it's my style that I always try to improve things and make things better. And I want to engage with everyone the best way I can. I have a how can I say? I try to be as empathetic as I can as well, because we really have to understand that it's no black and white here. There is no right and wrong. There is a new way of doing things that some people might agree immediately, some other people might not. And then you don't win anything by fighting with this, right? By trying to push or to force. You have to go with the flow, and you have to. And some people may not adapt to this at all, which is also okay. And it's part of the game, right? And so then it's a new era that we're living. And I think the pandemic, if I go back to the pandemic, in general, just brought much more pressure in everything that we do, especially on the digital experience. So this is here to stay. That's how I think. So the change is going to be a constant from now, more than ever.
Mariana, you raised your hand.
Hi, Juliana. There are also other questions on the chat, by the way. Yeah, so I'm kind of jumping the queue here. Juliana, it's just a question that you you raised there around working as well with the strategic consulting and with the technical consulting, and having been on the consulting side of the fence and now being on the industry side of the fence. I know that it's not always like the easiest of the relationships. I was just wondering, how did you ensure that the consultants were giving realistic recommendations and, like not just keeping it at a high level, but at the same time, your internal teams also took this external recommendation seriously and not just, oh, they're consultants. They think they know what they're doing and I know my business better. So how did you strike that balance?
So first of all, the leadership was never for the consultant on this one. It was ours all the time. So we were the ones setting the tone, and we are still the ones setting the tone. So we didn't really delegate the path or the speed of the transformation, right? So, and I think this is something that makes a difference, because I think in the past we were used to wait for the consultants to tell us what to do. Right. And then many times you would say, but they don't really know the reality of the day-to-day, how it is. So then it doesn't work for me. That was not the case here. It was a partnership model with a very different type of contract than the traditional consultant contracts in a way, in which, because that's what we want to build. We want to make sure that we would commit to the success of the program. Not really, we were not interested in paying consultants to come and tell us what to do. And that made the whole difference, to be honest. Having the leadership inside Latam first, and second, taking what they could bring to us, which was actually the expertise on some subjects that we were not really as mature back then.
Paul, you raised your hand.
Hey, Paul.
Thanks. Yeah.
I did. Hi, Juliana. One of the questions I had was really around the fact that you have different airline AOCs in different countries, and there's different national cultures, and I'm sure that was an added complication for you rolling this out across the group. So maybe you can talk a little bit about different national cultures and fear of change, aversion to change, and what they bring.
That's fantastic, Paul, and that opens me to so many things that I could talk about. So let me start by saying that Latam is very unique in terms of our landscape, right? I'm not sure if everybody here is familiar, so I'm going to briefly mention, as Paul was saying, we are in different markets as home markets. What does it mean? Is that we have domestic operation in different countries. So in each country, we have a different set of regulations. We have different sets of experience, right, or of behavior from customers. What the customer expects is also not necessarily the same. We also have, in terms of everything that we have inside and everything that we sell, we have different codes for everything. It is not really like an American airline, an airline in the US, let's say, that's what I try to say, that they really operate there as domestic, and then they fly elsewhere. That is not our case. We are domestic in different parts. And that has been a complexity and a complication for everything we do digitally, not only for this, for everything. So every time we have to set up something, a new process, a new platform, or whatever, we really have to take into consideration, and you have to build the condition to operate differently in each country in accordance with what we need, especially in terms of regulation, of course. But also in this case, we had to consider what is the normal way of doing business in the different countries. So that, starting by that, so the platform already would have to be able to manage that. So we try to define the same process as much as possible for every country. But then you have different rules. Like, for example, the refunds that I was mentioned before. The rules that I have in Peru are different from the rules that I have to apply in the refunds process for Brazil, which are different from Chile. So how do you build that, right? That makes things naturally, if you want to be in one platform, that makes things more complex. So what we're targeting here now we have one platform. Before we used to have like 12 different web pages. Now we have one. But this one needs to understand when you change the flag above, when you go to Peru, needs to be able to respond to what we need to deliver to the customer in accordance with what it's defined for Peru. And so that's a challenge by nature. So if you explore that to the culture, to the change, it's also very different. The level of digitalization, the level of bancarization in those countries is totally different. So it is very hard, to be honest. It's a constant, it's a lot of work, and it's a constant, it's an issue that we're going to have because of the way we are a regional airline, sorry, right? So we are not a local airline. We try to be as local as possible, and that's our goal, to be recognized as local by the customers. But we have many things, like for example, the IT distribution systems that it's one at the end of the day, right? And you have to be able to localize the experience as much as possible. So that's a challenge. Then in the culture, it goes the same way. Sometimes we would do an MVP in a country, and then we would roll out, and then we would have a completely different result. And then we had to learn. So why was that? It has to do with the customer, the way that things are managed in this certain country. It has to do with, how digital is used in this country. So countries with a higher digitalization, let's say in general, right, in which people do things in the day-to-day digitally, have a different response to some of the things that we're developing. Then countries that the automation, the digitalization is not that high, so we want to talk to someone to confirm that that's really the price, and the flight is really going to leave in that day. We still have a lot of that, and that's a challenge. It's not something that we have to earn the trust from the customer, and also the trust from the people inside the company, right? Just so they can support the digital agenda, and really, hopefully, we should more and more be there with our customers, but more to provide them an even better physical experience, let's say, than really being there just to process something that they could not do online. But that is our by the way that we operate. We are a regional airline, so not an easy one, to be honest. Very complex for us.
I mean, that sounds incredibly complex. I just had one quick follow-on that just came straight to me there, and that's really there's kind of a dilemma in that being an airline is a service industry, so there's a high touch element, and then being digital is a hands-off approach. So how do you strike a balance between, not being too hands-off and yet being hands-on enough to deliver a great experience to your customer?
Oh, fantastic. So first, let me clarify something. Latam is always going to be there, either on the phone or physically at the airport or the boarding gate, right? And of course, inside the airplane. We are going to be there. People are going to be there from Latam, representing Latam. What we want to provide is the ability for the customer to choose when he wants to engage, and engage when he wants to, more than because he has to, because he could not do it online. So that is more or less what we are after. That's our vision, right? So I wanted to be able to provide everything and to do everything digitally. Whether the customer is going to choose to do that digitally or not, it's up to his or her, he or she, right? So it is not really up to us, and that's what we want to avoid today. Or with our old legacy systems, in many cases, the customer has no option because a lot of processes are not automated at a level that we can really put a screen on the front of the customer for the customer to manage. We also come in our industry. There's a lot of complexity in the business model, but also our old mindset, let's say, that really set us to believe that the complexity was beneficial for the company somehow. So, and that's something that it's not easy to break. But the vision, Paul, is it is not really. We don't force the customers to be fully online, fully digital. We want to offer the option for you to do everything you need digitally when you want to, and then when you have a need to talk to someone, someone is going to be there to talk to you. That is what we are.
You were mentioning several times legacy systems. What is your explanation that they were so hard to replace pre-pandemic? And do you feel that the organization is now empowered to tackle them easier and to replace them very soon, or will they stay longer?
To be honest,
Then on the next panel, you will tell me we still have a lot of legacy systems.
To be honest, I'm not really working to replace all the legacies. I'm working to work on top of them. I want to build the freedom on top of them. Replacing legacies is not that simple. It's not that easy. And that's not really our goal here. I don't want to be stuck in my ability to improve the customer experience because of the legacies systems and platforms that we have. That is more or less what I'm trying to say. It is, and eventually I want to replace a few, and in many cases by new technology, right? So we get that same process and we bring to another platform that is going to bring us more flexibility and speed our time to market. But that is just so I'm clear on that one. So the agenda here is not to replace the legacy, but that is something that I want to mention to you because you're talking about pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, pandemic, right? Because we are still, in theory, we are still in the pandemic. But there is one thing that has been helping a lot, which is the pandemic forced a lot of people to really go digital against their will, right? So, for example, in markets like Chile, that the restrictions during the crisis were really, really strong and really heavy. You had no much option. You had to start doing grocery shops online. So it was so hard to leave the house. You could leave like twice a week the house to do something, to do things, and otherwise you could really pay a penalty and be stopped by the police because they really didn't want to see anyone in the streets for some periods of time. So people really had to go. And the digital services in general have been improving a lot. The grocery shopping, even the delivery, the logistic processes, right, of many companies have really improved a lot. Things that we used to buy and receive in 5 working days, now you buy and receive the next day. So I think there is a new experience that everybody's living, not related to the airline, but related to their day-to-day. Which also I use that a lot, right? Because it's a way of making for everybody to understand that the difference at the end of the day, it is a lot on what we define, but it's also a lot dependent on the platform that we have and how we build the condition to really develop and deliver new features, improve the experience constantly. And that's what we want. We want to fail fast and improve fast. And so that's more or less right what we are after here. And the legacies, some of them I don't think necessarily are going to be replaced, but we have to abstract them. That's what we try to do as much as possible.
Is it from risk perception that you are not taking the legacy, or is it because the added value of replacing them is not reasoning the investment to replace them?
I think it's a little bit of both and everything. So first of all, we are not a low-cost carrier, right? So we are a legacy company, legacy airline. So we are dependent on the distribution systems. We have dependencies other than that. We are not going to change entirely our business model in that sense. We want to change the business experience model, the customer experience model, but not necessarily. We're not going to change the way that we operate that much. So, and that comes with some conditions that we have to have in order to operate, right? So that's why we are open to look at, let me put it differently. We are that will be from now on is more and more interested in learning whether there are solutions in the market that could maybe at least update the technology. I think my issue with it is not about, I'm not after redeveloping everything or developing all the systems for Latam. I want to make sure that we control the customer experience, but behind that, that's not really our goal. But we need to have platforms and solutions and systems that help us be faster in improving their experience. That is more or less how I would phrase it to you.
Sharina, Fatima, Maria, you had questions. Please shoot your questions.
Yeah, I can ask now.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, Fatma, do you want to go?
No, you go ahead, because I didn't. I can't see the chat, so I don't know why. But go ahead, please. I go after.
Thank you, Fatma. Juliana, very interesting to hear your experience. I work for Emirates, so I wanted to ask, are you working with agile teams now, small agile teams working with a product mindset? And how many teams do you have? And what is the framework that you have applied? And if there are many teams, how do you manage the dependencies between teams? Wanted to learn that.
Yes, that's a big challenging. So yes, we are working on this program. We are working with more or less, I give a round number, but like 40 different digital teams. And they all have, we try to make sure that we have very specific accountability for the different steps on the journey of the customer. And what we do is they have a quarter planning process. We have an annual planning process and a quarter planning process in which we talk about the vision and what we want to achieve in terms of the customer experience. And then we try to set as little as possible, but also enough business targets to achieve every 3 months. And then the teams cascade that to their part of the journey, bring their what they think would be a good agenda for them to develop in order to contribute to the overall target ambition, let's say, for the quarter. And then we have everyone together, and then we have a series of workshops in which we try to align, and we bring everything, and then we try to align it, because in many cases, of course, in one step, you will have a dependency from someone else. If you want to buy, for example, if you have an idea to sell, to develop a new product, this new product needs to be paid, and afterwards needs to be served, right? So it needs to be able to change, to refund. So then you touch other teams. So I cannot have a new product being sold anymore if I don't have the whole end-to-end process also being developed at the same time. So, and that is what we do, that with a lot of meetings to coordinate every quarter. But afterwards, that's it. Then we have program meetings every week, and we have daily meetings for the teams. And that's how we organize. And then we have sprints every 2 weeks, in which we release fully or partially the new developments that we do, and then we test whether it's the results that we want or not, and then we update and then we improve. So we are learning a lot still, to be honest, Sharina. It's a new way of working. It is. And what I'm doing now, just to mention quickly, the rest of my IT team, that it's more traditional, right? So there we are really, since last year, we started with an Agile agenda, but just to prepare the IT team to really start setting the mindset to work in a different way. And then I have a lot of different challenges there, because of course the engagement in the day-to-day with the rest of the organization is still pretty much as it used to be, different business and IT. And my main mission with them is to make them believe that they have to have a voice, and they could have a voice since today. They don't have to wait until we are agile. IT needs to learn to speak up, the IT teams, right? And to really push back, understand what is the problem that I'm trying to solve. This is part of which process in big picture. This is engagement that I'm really, with the rest of the IT team, really working on changing the way that we present ourselves in the day-to-day with the rest of the organization. But I do have at least like, I think I have 25 squads already in IT as well, working in different things.
Yeah, I can imagine how complex that could be to coordinate across teams as well. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yes.
Now we're coming to the last question. Maria or Fatima? You have to agree. Who asked the last question?
Well, I don't know. It depends. Of course, I can follow afterwards, but my question is can be very quick, I hope, because it can be also very long. But my question is regarding, all the process that you've been going through to find out a solution that is quicker and more agile in order to do the transition to digitalization. My question is, you have chosen to work also with startups because you understand that this way they can give you some faster a response to a use case that you have. And according to the use case that you have chosen, which one was the most challenging for you and why? That was my question.
Oh my gosh, so many. It's very hard to mention one.
Yeah, I know. Well,
I mentioned to you the refunds thing, and I think it's a very difficult one, right? We work with a lot of airlines, so sometimes a reservation includes parts of other airlines. So it is a complex process to fully automate, especially because you have to combine the conditions of the fare, right, together with the legs that you have. So it is. And sometimes you buy a ticket on the that on one leg it's in one cabin, and then the next leg is in a different cabin, and then how do you combine both, and you have to refund everything. Anyway, so that's one that is extremely, to be honest, challenging. Another one is also, I could mention the like staff travel. We have a specific platform for staff travel, but in the moment of traveling, so that's what we're exploring right now. I still don't have anyone, but we're exploring right now. How can we automate a little bit better as well the experience for the employee, right? So when they have to travel and can make it more smooth. So that's another one. I think biometric is in those. To be honest, they are not that challenging in a way because there's a lot of solutions in the market. And it's pretty specific, but I would go more to the refund stuff. So those processes that are really unique to our industry, let's say, that those are the ones that are more difficult.
Okay, thank you so much.
Daniel, do you want to go to Maria quickly?
Yeah, if you have still some time, perfect. Then Maria can also ask a question. Perfect.
Yes, just so if she's there already, if they raise hand.
Yeah.
Wait, is that me? Sorry. Or was there anyone else? Okay. Sorry, I didn't realize if you were talking about me or if there was someone else on the.
Yeah, there was a question from Maria Paulina. You don't want to ask a question?
Okay, sorry.
No, I think that Mariana already raised my question. Thanks a lot, Daniel. It was for Juliana to explain a little bit how do you balance the business knowledge with the IT technical knowledge of the different teams. Maybe you put, as an idea, you put together an IT guy together with a business guy to share the knowledge and to share the requirements to get to achieve the goal of automizing it. I think you already replied to it.
Yeah. It has to be one team. Just make sure that it's very, at least what I believe. And if I write a book one day, I can give more details there eventually. But we have to take out those labels, Maria. There is no such thing as business and IT. Everybody needs to understand well. On those teams, everybody needs to understand both.
The requirements, you mean? Yeah.
You have specific capabilities that some people are going to bring and add in the team. But that is, we're trying, I really fight hard to try to remove as much as possible the tags, and the teams are actually one. And then you have someone leading the team with all the capabilities combined, okay. Let's say. That is more or less how it is. Yeah. We have to remove those tags. I don't want to scare my team if they see the video afterwards, but I think that the idea of business and IT needs to cease to exist in that way, in some way. It's not going to happen entirely, but
differently,
it has to work differently. And so you really have to be willing to let go, just so we can really be open to really work in a different way and to change. Daniel, I think that's it.
I just wanted to add on to that, Mariana, sorry. Wanted to ask, do you have product managers for your teams? Would that be the SME / IT person who leads
So
the team?
we have digital product leads,
Okay.
and the digital product leads, I think most of them actually came from what we call business, right? Came from the business more than from IT. And then inside that team, and it's only one lead. And inside that team, you have the different skills, let's say, combined.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Maybe as a final question, Juliana, I know that digital transformation will always be a continuous thing and we'll never be done with it, but versus that initial mission that you had when you joined the team 2-3 years ago, where do you think you are in terms of, are you 90% there, or, like, how do you feel like it has progressed, and do you think there's still a lot to do, or have you already reached the level that you wanted initially?
No, not at all. Not at all. If I have to put a number, and as you said, I think this is a continuous improvement process. It's not really something that you can say, I'm done with the digital transformation. In order to really become and stop talking about it. And I think we are, I don't know, I would say that we are less than 30%, to be honest, because it's a having the team all together working, the first step, that was easy. That was really, we could really move fast because we didn't allow the interaction with the rest of the organization, to be honest with you. That's why that's the company in a company idea that I was mentioning. That's what it meant. It meant that we took the people out from the day-to-day of Latam, put them there to rethink and redesign and develop the new experience, and then we brought them back to the company. And this has to be something that the company learns. It is not about the team, right? Because otherwise, also, I think it is not sustainable over time. So I prefer to believe that we are in the beginning still, and this is because otherwise I'm really afraid of relaxing and trusting that everything's fine and then stop pushing. And I think we're not ready for that. We have to keep pushing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juliana. I believe that was a fantastic panel discussion. And my big hope is that one day you're going to write this book, because I believe everybody wants to read it. These stories about change,
who knows,
and these different cultures and so on, I think that's, you should have this on your list to write the book about it. Yeah. And I think it's a big success also to go through all this change during the pandemic, because it's an additional layer of complexity, but as you rightly said, also an opportunity. So let's look shortly in the future. We have more panel to come in the upcoming months, and I hope you are going to join these panel discussions too, because we have here really a great list of speakers from all over the world. And it was fantastic that you could spare some time for the aviation women panel today, Juliana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel.
All of you, please stay healthy and safe. And I hope to see you soon again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.